Okay, cool. We're gonna see how this works. I have not used this setup to go live before. I have a camera over here and like a monitor over here. I'm hoping the audio for this works. But in any case, today I'm going. Oh, also sorry, I have to kind of like duck to be in the frame. Oh, that's actually super annoying. Can I zoom out? I don't think I can. I'm just gonna move this backwards. What are the odds it's gonna fall? Everything is gonna fall. Oh boy. Oh. Okay. No, not quite. Close enough. Okay, perfect. I'm just gonna lean back. How about that? All right. So hello. I wanted to do a quick video to discuss the music theory on guitar. Because, I jam with so many people and they so often ask me, what are you doing? How do you think about stuff? And there are so many answers to that question. But nonetheless, I want to cover some of the basics to help you improve your craft. The first thing I'm going to say, though, is pretty much, so I can teach you the foundational stuff. I can teach you the chords, I can teach you the scales. But, to actually use it, though, is, almost all intuition, at least for me. And everyone's going to be different on this. But for me, it's, all about the flow. It's just feeling it in my hands rather than thinking about it. And so the reason that this has been such a hard thing for me to do and to answer for people is because when I play, I don't think, and so what I've done in the past couple years is I've really started to try to be more aware about what's the music theory behind what I'm doing here. That sort of thing. I've been doing that for years. Ooh. Sorry, this is very thrown together in case you couldn't tell. But I've been doing that sort of thing for years, and I didn't even know what I was doing for such a long time. But then more recently I've realized oh, that's the harmonic minor, or oh, that's the Phrygian dominant, which is the same as the harmonic minor. In any case, I just want to guide you kind of through the process as it works for me, I guess. I can only kind of teach you how I have processed this information, which is pretty much after the fact. But by maybe sharing with you what I've learned after the fact, it'll help you to get there a little faster. That's really the goal of this video. So I kind of subtitled, chords, scales, and having fun. And those are kind of the three foundations, I think, for me in my guitar playing. And so we'll cover all of them here, probably many of them at the same time. I want to encourage you to look at the piano video I made. I posted it in the description as well, which is kind of a basic understanding of music theory. Now, piano is a really great instrument to visualize music theory, especially in the key of C, which is what I was doing in that video. Because, as you may know, the key of C has no sharps and no flats, which on the piano just means it has all the white keys. So it's pretty easy to see what the scale is and what's going to sound good or not. Now, when you go to the guitar, it's not black and white. So knowing which notes to play is not nearly as intuitive, at least on a visual level. You have to kind of think of it in a different way. And so I'm a guitar player, and when I play the piano, I really think of it still as a guitarist. And, when I play the guitar, I'm not thinking of it as a piano player. I'm not thinking oh, is this white or black? Is this sharp or flat? Guitarists, I think, generally speaking, maybe it's just me, but it's probably most of us, we think in shapes. Okay, and bassists do this too, although bassists I think have it a lot easier than guitarists because there's we're not going to go down that road, but I think in terms of shapes, right? So the first thing you got to learn is not going to be what every note on the guitar is. I mean, that is a useful exercise, but not in like the visual piano way, but rather what it kind of feels like and the way that notes are related to each other. So, I would start just learning your basic chords. I'm not going to spend very long on this, but it's pretty foundational. So, C major, D major, E minor versus E major, And, pay attention to the shapes. So you may notice that C major is actually the same shape as D major. It's just moved up 2 frets, which is 2 half steps or 1 whole step. There's a whole step between C and D, so moving from C to D is really just the same shape moved up 2 frets. Now we could play D another way to make that look more obvious. So here's our C chord. And if we just move this up 2 frets, it's basically, I'll do it this way. Here's a D chord. And it's as if I took these open strings and I moved them up to here. Okay, and if this is the 0th fret, if this were the nut, then this would be a C chord, So that's kind of how that goes. And if you want to take this further, move it up another whole step, you got an E chord, another half step, F chord, G chord, A chord. So, it's the same shape, just being transposed, horizontally, I guess, or vertically, or whatever direction that is. So yeah, there's only a couple different shapes you really need to know. The first, again, I would say just C major, which is really the same as D major. So recognize this pattern thing, here, here, whoop, here. Sorry, I'm trying to do this in a weird way. Here you have a D, and an F sharp. It's like this. Move it up here. Okay, so down here, this was a D, right? So if we move it up to here, same shape, it's still this note that's going to be the root. What note is this? It's a G. So here you have a G major. This is on the 8th fret, that G. So that's like moving the D shape around. And it's really easy to think like, oh, what chord is this? Oh, well, what's the root? Okay, it's this note, which is, in this case, a B flat. So this is a B flat chord. Okay? Now, you want to get to do this with all of the different chords. So identifying where is the root in your shape. So again, here's the C in the C chord. This is also a C, the 3rd fret on the A string. So whenever I move this shape, that's what I'm looking for. If I'm like, what chord is this? What shape is this? Ah, it's this one, or this one. Okay? Let me see. And then like G. G is another really great shape for you to learn. And I'm going to come back to most of these with this whiteboard in just a moment. But G, you have so many open strings. Where are your Gs? Here's a G. Here's a G, open 3rd string, and here on the 1st string. So if I move this shape, and this is a harder one to do, but you can bar it kind of like this. This note, this note, this note, this note, and this note. Those are all C's, so this is a C chord. It's the G shape. It's the same as here. This is a really weird shape to play. Don't play chords like that, or do. I don't care. Figure out what works for you. That's going to be part 3 of this video. But anyway, so recognizing where is the thing in there, and so. Let me see. And then one other shape to show you is going to be A. Okay, and this is just 3 across the middle like that. And if I move, this is going to be really useful for when you do bar chords, because you can just play these 3 strings. And which chord is that? It's this note, which is a C sharp. So, identifying kind of what is the shape is really key. And so this is actually super important for when we like take solos. Let me move on to scales now to kind of demonstrate this. So your most basic scale that every guitar lesson is going to teach you first before any others is right here on this board. It's the Pentatonic Scale. Pentatonic means 5 tones, in case you are a Latin person, in case you study Romance languages. Penta means 5. There's that Greek. I don't know. I don't care either. Rude. In any case, the pentatonic scale has 5 notes in it. What are the 5 notes? Well, it depends if you're in major or minor. Let's start with minor, which is on this board. So you may have heard that A minor is the same as C, and this is true, but they're different relations to the root. So in A minor, so the notes are the same, but different roots mean different relations to the roots. So in A minor, you have A, C, D, E, and G back up to A. Okay, and it makes this shape right here. This is the 5th fret. Here, I'll just play it for you. This is the 5th fret, 8th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 8th fret, 5th fret, 8th fret. And that's your A minor scale. And so what I want you to do is to take a look at this and tell me where are the A's. And so if you do, you'll notice that this is an A, this is an A, and this is an A. And so if you look at the shape around those A's, you'll notice kind of a familiar pattern. It looks like this. It's really hard to see at this angle, my apologies. But it looks like this. You're playing. And so, what is this shape? Well, it's actually just an E minor moved up 2.5 steps. E minor, A minor, right? Same shape, but we're just taking this bar and we're moving it. It's like this. It's like we're taking the open strings and just making them higher up to here, and then doing these two, which are kind of your traditional E minor chord. And so I want to draw that out for you. This is supposed to be a little interactive thing. And so on this little whiteboard, so here is the scale that I just showed you. This is the 6th string, this is the 1st string. If we play an A minor chord, it looks like this. We have so these 3 that were already filled in, those are A's. Those are the note A, which is the root of the chord. Okay? Now this is what is that note? That is an E, which is the 5th of an A minor chord. Then we also have this note, which is a C, which is the minor 3rd of an A minor chord. And then another E, and then another A. And so again, if we look at this, it's just an E minor chord. If this wasn't the 5th fret, if this was the 0th fret, if these were open strings across, this would be an E minor. If this was the 1st fret, this would be an F minor. If this was the 3rd fret, it would be a G minor. Okay, and so this is really the usefulness of the guitar, is the fact that, I don't have to know what key I'm in to know the shape. If I want to solo over here, I just need to identify, okay, where's the root? Or what am I soloing in? Well, it's this note, which is a G sharp, Now on piano, this would be such a pain in the butt, because if you want to play in G sharp, you got to learn, what are the black keys that I need, and what are the white keys that I need. So C major is all the white keys, but do you know C sharp major? Heck no you don't, because it's like all sorts of weird combinations of white and black keys, and it takes a million years to figure it out. Now, on guitar, it's so much easier. You take this shape I just showed you. So C is here, 8th fret, E string. Here's the C major scale. And then, C minor scale. And then you want to play C sharp minor? Take the same shape, just move it up a fret. Off the 9th fret now, which is our C sharp. Okay, now let's just keep going. D minor, just another fret, and D sharp. Anyway, so So it's really easy once you know the shapes. You can just put them wherever you want, you know. But it's important to know, if you want to know, like, oh, this song's in the key of G minor, then I need to base my shape off this note, which is a G. Now, this is just one form of the pentatonic scale. And the other cool thing about guitar is you really have a lot of intervals that are accessible to kind of transpose up and down. I guess that's true of most instruments, most stringed instruments. But, you know, this scale, you can actually just take a little higher and play the same notes up here. Now, I'm not going to teach you all those, but you can figure them out on your own pretty easily just by doing this. So this note is the same as this note. The 10th fret on the E string is the same note as the 5th fret on the A string, and so you can, instead of going bum, bum, like that, you can go bum, bum, up on just the E string, and then over from there to, you can figure out what the scale is. Now, I'm going to say to start, just use this shape right here. Just use this, it's called the first form of the minor pentatonic scale. Now I mentioned the notes that are in the minor pentatonic scale before. What are those? In the key of A minor, it's A, C, D, E, and G. 5 notes, right? And you'll notice that 3 of those make an A minor chord. A, C, and E makes your A minor chord. Then there's also the 4 of A minor, the perfect fourth, and then the flat 7. And so this kind of scale is great for blues. The flat 7 is an iconic blues note, and then the 4 also just kind of sounds good in most scenarios and situations and things. I'm just going to play a really quick little backing track. I have a little looper here, and show you kind of what an A minor blues sounds like. So I'm just going to use the notes in that little box. Of course, I'm bending all sorts of stuff, and I'm debating if I want to say this or if it's going to overcomplicate things. Here's what I'm going to tell you. All right, where'd my marker go? Here it is. So there's really 3 notes that I focus on bending on more than any others, at least in this scale shape, and those are these 3 notes. You can bend these 3 notes. And why does it work? Well, because when you bend any of these up a whole step, you get a note in the arpeggio, in the chord. And so it's going to sound good then when you go from a note that's not in your arpeggio meaning just the notes A, C, E, which are an A minor chord. It's going to sound good when you take one of those notes and bend it up to one that is in the chord. It kind of gives it a nice flavor. And technically this is in the chord. This is a C here. It also sounds good. Anyway, so that's the A minor pentatonic scale. And again, it's built off just the notes. So in terms of relation to the root, I have it written out right up top here. So in the key of A minor, you have your notes. A is your 1, right? Then C is your flat 3rd, so you can do that like that, or I'm kind of giving you a hint as to what the next form is. Anyway, sorry, I get distracted. You have your flat 3rd, then you have your 4th, then you have your 5th, and then you have your 7th. And so everywhere you go on the neck, that is going to be your pentatonic scale, your blues A minor pentatonic scale. And so if you want to play it in C instead, just take the exact same shape, if you want to play it in C, just go up 3 half steps, because from A to C is 3 half steps, which means 3 frets. 3 frets, that's all you got to do. And then you got a C minor pentatonic scale. You're in A minor here. You want a F minor. Bring it down to F, because here's your root, F, and now play it from F. That's the other thing. You can build it off a dominant 7 chord. So if you want just a little thing to practice, I'm not going to dive too into what this chord is, but if you know what an A dominant 7 is, it's this chord. And you can always play this scale over this chord and it's going to sound good. Sorry. Get some of those bends in there. One chord and this scale just sounds great. The other thing you would be able to do, you could also play a major pentatonic. Good transition. Which brings us to C major pentatonic. Now it's the same exact scale as the A minor pentatonic, the same exact notes, but if we're emphasizing the chord C major instead of A minor, we get a different arpeggio. Now what are the notes in a C major chord? Well, as you may know, we have our C, a major third, which is in the chord of C. The major third is A, E, and then the 5th, which is in G. And so, a C major chord is just C, E, G, wherever you play it. It doesn't matter where you play it. This is also C, E, G. This is also a C major chord. Up here, also that, same idea. C, E, G. And so if we come to our scale and we identify where are the C's, the E's, and the G's, well, we got so I'm trying to do this so that you can see it. Here's an E. What note is this? This is a G. Then we have a C again. Then we have a C. Wait, did I say C twice? Oh, sorry, this isn't C. This is that's an E. And then here's a G. And then here's another C. And so here, again, we have a shape that should be recognizable. Now, if this was the 0th fret, if these were open strings at the top here, what chord would this be? Well, let's see. I'll not spoil it quite yet. Give you a second to think. If this is our shape, let's just play it down here. So it's a G chord. Woo! We've taken our G shape, we've just moved it up 5 frets, 5 half steps. And if you go G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, if you move up 5 half steps from G, you get to C. So that's how you get from from a G to a C. Now again, it's the same exact notes as A minor, but it's being played differently. It's being played with it really depends what progression you're using. It's the same scale though, and how you emphasize it really matters. Now you notice again, same scale, but different notes are colored in black, right? And so those are the notes that you're going to want to emphasize if you want to play specifically a C sound, a C major sound, or an A minor sound. And a lot of that comes down to what chord you're playing over. So I mentioned before we can play an A minor pentatonic over an A dominant 7 chord. We can also do an A major pentatonic over a dominant 7 chord. It has kind of a different flavor, but it still sounds pretty good. So let's do it over a C7 and play C major pentatonic just for clarity here. So sounds bright and major key, right? It has a major sound. Now let me take. So that was C major. Now that's what happens if we played a C major pentatonic over a C7 chord, but there's no reason we couldn't play the C minor pentatonic over a C7 chord. Same exact chord, let's different scale though. Yeah? So, okay, first tip that I'm going to give you. I mean, these have all been. I wouldn't call what I've done so far as tips. I would call them as like foundational stuff. Here's a real tip that will really take your play to the next level. Possibly, it has for me. Is mixing both C major and C minor. It doesn't matter if it's C or something else. Mixing both the major and the minor pentatonic scales over the same progressions. So, for example, let's just do a C major progression. This is just a C and an F chord. And, we can just do our happy little C major. So going to that C minor over a C major progression just sounds instantly just so good. Oh, that's one of my favorite things to do. Okay. And it's kind of identifying little tricks like that that's really going to take your playing to the next level. Like, again, this is the foundational stuff, but it's not on its own going to sound good if all your solos are just this. If you just play that over and over again, like, that's not what makes music cool, and it's not what makes music fun. As Joe Satriani once said, no one wants to pay to see you practice, right? Like, no one wants to hear you just playing scales on stage, because what we go for is kind of how you use the scale. This is the foundation, but what really matters is how you use it. And so to practice this, the first thing you're going to have to do is to memorize this shape, because again, I mentioned the shape is just so important. First thing, memorize these shapes and identify where the chord positions are in each shape so that you know kind of where to land. If you want to emphasize an A minor chord, make sure you're landing on the black notes here. That's how you emphasize an A minor sound in the same notes that you could also have a C major sound, So that I think is a really important thing to keep in mind. Like, you need to know what is going over what. And now, if you have an A minor C progression, you can use both of these notes and it's going to sound best if you emphasize the A minor notes over the A minor chord and the C major notes over the C major chord. So let's just do that. So just A minor C. Anyway, that's kind of what we're going for here. Over the A minor, playing kind of the A minor tones, and then over the C major, playing the C major tones. Now, there is an extra step to this, and I'm debating if I want to go there today. So what I'm thinking of is modes, if I want to introduce you to the concept of modes. You know, it might make sense for me to just leave you with this foundation for like a week or something. Yeah, I'm going to do 2 separate lessons. So in about a week, I'm going to come back and teach you how to go even more out of the box. The first thing you need to do is going to be to memorize these shapes. If you want to get creative, you know, you can, what you should do is identify how these shapes transpose to other keys. You know, and just move the same shape up and down. So what am I in right now? Ah, F sharp. C sharp. G sharp. You know, like identifying what's the key. And then practice soloing with these shapes, because that's how music kind of comes alive, is not the scale necessarily, but how you use the scale and how you play the scale. And to do that, it's going to sound better if you play with something, whether that's other people or there's a couple ways you could do it. If you have a looper pedal, that's how I have practiced for like over 10 years now. Like having a looper pedal changed my life, literally. If you don't have a looper pedal, though, don't worry. Go on YouTube and just search guitar backing track, and you will get millions of results. Probably there's so many backing tracks, and so what you can do is just practice. You know, it'll say, hopefully, usually it'll say like, this backing track is in the key of C major. You know, okay, you know what scale to use now. It's right here, right? Or it's in D major. Same scale, but just moved up a whole step, moved up 2 frets. That's all you need to know. Okay, so just memorize the notes, memorize the shape, and move it to the appropriate root, which again, this is for the minor. It's your first bottom, whereas for the major, it's your third. And it's always going to be that relationship, right? So, you know, if you're in F sharp minor, that's A major. Or if you're in B minor, that's D major, okay? Anyway, I think that was pretty much all I was going to say about that. Oh yeah, so find some backing tracks and just jam out a little bit. Oh, and then one more thing. Again, if you want to kind of take it to the next level, not just play in a 3-fret box, you can learn, you know, what happens if I transpose this upward. The same notes, you know, identifying where they are to get the next scale shape. I'm not going to go over what every single scale shape is, but using these notes you can identify 5 different places to play this scale. There are 5 forms of the pentatonic scale. So there's 5 notes in it, and there's 5 different places to play it. Maybe that's a coincidence, maybe not. In any case, so identify the 5 different places that you can play these exact notes, because there are different shape patterns. And then what you can do also when you use these different shape patterns is identify what is the chord that I'm looking at. Because again, we first were looking at the E minor shape, just moved up 5 frets. And then we were looking at the G major shape, just moved up 5 frets. And so each different scale shape of the same scale has a different arpeggio kind of underlying it. So for example, you know, that as an A minor is kind of based off that arpeggio, which isn't one that you're probably very used to. Let's do a different one. That is based off of your traditional A minor chord. So actually this... Sorry, I'm botching how I'm playing it. That is going to be built off of your traditional A minor chord down here. Now if you wanted to do it in B minor, and and so on and so forth. So each different shape has an underlying arpeggio. Identify what's where so that you know which notes to land on when you're soloing, and it'll sound a little better that way. Yeah. Now, if you want to cheat, you can Google what are the, what is the pentatonic scale on guitar, and it'll show you the whole fretboard and point out every single note. I just caution you, if you do it that way, it's going to be harder to learn it all at once and to memorize everything. I think it'll be easier to kind of figure it out on your own and be like, oh, that's where that is, okay, and then keep moving that way. That's how I did it anyway. I don't know if that's how other people would benefit from doing it. Next week, I'm going to tell you about modes, which will be pretty fun, because that's when things get really spicy. Like, this pentatonic scale is very foundational and is very good for getting just general. You can make it sound good. That's not the problem. What you want to eventually get to is a little more interesting things. So the other weird notes that I'm adding in there is what I'm going to teach you next week. But I don't want to overcomplicate things for you right now. Just be excited that that's where we're going to go. And one last note. In terms of having fun, which is, again, the most important thing that we're doing here, again, foundation is cool, but fun is where it's at, and fun is what brings it alive. When you're playing this stuff, feel free to play other notes. There's no reason, you can't play things that aren't in this scale, and a lot of them will sound good. It's just every note has a different flavor, and so these are kind of the most basic flavors that you can build off of. And as we move forward, we'll throw some other kind of more colorful flavors in that give things an even more interesting taste, And so feel free to... I'm still playing most of the pentatonic stuff, but yeah, so we're going to get to what these other flavors are, but feel free to break outside of this box, experiment for yourself. To kind of come full circle on this video, it's like, I did learn these things, but to really know them, I didn't just study them on paper. And the scales that we're going to get to, it's the same way. I didn't learn them by just studying them on paper. I learned them by playing and by experimenting and by being like, oh, that's kind of weird, and then repeating it and being like, oh, what happens when what happens when I add this note to this scale, and after a while I kind of realized that this is what's underlying all of it. But I learned it in my hands before I learned it on the whiteboard. So feel free to play around with your hands and just begin to understand what everything sounds like, where everything is, and yeah, because there's really, it's okay to mess up, there are no wrong notes. They're just different flavored notes, and you can always redeem it if you were to play a wrong note. But if you're not playing to an audience, there are no wrong notes, period. If you don't have an audience, they're all right notes. Really, I encourage you to get in that mindset, because you're just going to learn a lot faster if you're not hard on yourself, and if you let yourself come out of this box as much as possible to see what else is out there. Now, next week, I will show you what else is out there by adding some interesting flavors and doing some weird music theory. Also, check out the piano music theory video that I posted, because that will kind of foreshadow what we talk about. We're going to talk about the modes. And yeah, so with that, I encourage you to have fun, keep playing, keep jamming, keep grinding, and make sure you keep it fun, because this stuff is, grinding is fine, don't get me wrong, grinding is great. If you want to get better really fast, but another way to get better really fast is to actually play and to do it often, to do it often. And, you have to want to play the instrument. Some people, well, everyone's different, but I'm not the kind of person that can just like grind every day and not have fun, like, and just do technical practice all day, every day. After a while, it gets really boring. But when you start really playing around, and you can really express too when you give yourself a little more freedom, and that's what makes guitar fun, and that's what makes me want to play when I get up in the morning. Eventually want to get to the point where you play every day. And if playing is a chore, you're going to struggle to do that. So make sure you have fun, and make sure you forgive yourself. There are no wrong notes while you're practicing. Also while you're performing, if you're pretty cool. So yeah, take it and run with it. All right, I'll see you next week.